Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome back to Triumph and day 2 of the Conc-live hosted by Monster.com, India's leading online career and recruitment resource. And what do? You all know we provide the right jobs to job seekers and right profiles to employers and much more. I'm Vidya and I take care of talent development for Quest Corp, and I'm going to be your host for the evening. Now, Triumph is an important milestone for Monster.com, and we did talk about this yesterday as well. And this addresses one of society's most pressing needs to make people feel welcome and included, to make people feel at home in our corporate world. At Monster, we are committed to building a more diverse and inclusive environment for all. And keeping in line with this philosophy, Triumph has been launched in collaboration with a few of the best companies known for diversity and inclusion at the workplace. And as you are aware, Triumph is an important initiative aimed at enhancing diversity and inclusion at workplaces. And we're doing this through three key events. The first one is Techno Diva, and this event has already begun, and I'm sure a lot of you are already a part of it. This is a hackathon exclusively designed for women, and this event began on the 29th of June and will go on till the 18th of June. So if you haven't registered for this event, please do so. The second event is Connectathon, a virtual career fair hosting over 15,000 jobs from top companies in India and in India locations. And of course, the third one is this very event called Conc-live. This event is a platform through which we aim to promote the concept of diversity and inclusion. One is through online sessions, second is panel discussions and conversations with eminent industry leaders. And we'd like to make a special mention and a heartfelt thanks to the main sponsors for the event, that is Microsoft, Chubb, and BNY Mellon. And for tonight's event, we have a special conversation on hiring without biases with Pallavi Shom and Bhargavi Shankara. And this conversation will be led by our Nagma Sharma, who is our head of talent acquisition at Quest Corp. Following this conversation, we have a very interesting session called Making It Count. And this is by Prerna Mukherjee. Now, let's start with the first event. And this event is called Hiring Without Biases, which focuses on how a leader or anyone in the profession of hiring can hire without any sort of prejudices or any sort of bias. And we have two very special guests with us today. Pallavi Shom. Pallavi Shom is the Chief Operating Officer of the Bank of New York Mellon, BNYM it's called, the technology division in India. And she is also the Global Head of Strategic Vendor Partnerships for Global Operations and Technology with teams in the US and in India. She is on the board of BK Technology India. In Pallavi's 26-year corporate career, she has been a part of firms such as Fidelity Investments, Standard Chartered Bank, and British Telecom. And Pallavi is also passionate about mentoring and coaching on leadership, management, executive presence, and personal branding. Now, this is Pallavi for you. The second guest we have today is Bhargavi Shankara. Bhargavi is the head of Asset Servicing Technology India and Global Head of Vault BNY Mellon Technology. Bhargavi has more than 25 years of experience championing the development and design of high availability systems with key strengths that lie in emerging technologies. Prior to joining BNY Mellon, Bhargavi was the Vice President and Head of Technology India at American Express, where she was responsible for strategy formulation, delivery, innovation, and people leadership. So these are our very special guests today. And in conversation with Pallavi and Bhargavi is Nagma Sharma. And we'd like to start the conversation. So over to you, Nagma.
Hi Bhargavi, hi Pallavi.
Hello.
I think Pallavi is not online.
She's visible. Pallavi, I don't think you're unmuted on the phone, maybe.
Yeah.
No,
So,
not able.
Yeah, I think she's not unmuted yet.
she's not muted in the participants. Now she has muted herself in the participants.
Okay. So welcome both of you, Pallavi and Bhargavi. I'm really excited to talk to both of you because other than your introduction, what was given by Vidya, I know that both of you are extremely passionate about diversity and inclusion. So in the interest of time, I will be asking you question one by one. And of course, both of you are free to answer the question. The more views, the better it is. So my first question is to Pallavi. Uh, Pallavi, banking and investment sector seem to have a better gender balance and better diversity, hiring compared to other industries. So, what do you think that they have done differently? And more specifically, what does BNY Mellon do to make sure that they stay on top of it?
No.
Okay, Bhargavi, you can answer that. You want me to repeat the question?
No, I heard the question. And I'm just thinking what happened to my backdrop as Pallavi was talking about her. Listen, my monster has gotten like reversed. So I hope people are seeing me through a mirror image.
No, you are visible. Your monster is visible to us properly.
Okay, that's great then. Okay, so what do you think we are doing as a banking sector? A few things that come to my mind. One is we are using technology like Eightfold.ai, which helps us to kind of mask, gender and other aspects that can potentially cause a bias in how the resumes are selected for probable roles. And I guess that might be happening in some other companies as well. Second is actually through demonstration at the top of the house. If you look at our CEO, he has quite a few of his immediate directs are women. Our CFO is a woman. Our global technology and operations head, she's a woman leader. And they are, if you look at racial diversity, there are all kinds of races as well. Our chief people officer is a women leader. And like quite a few strategic positions in the bank are taken by the women leaders. So it starts to set the tone and example at every level in that sense. And the third factor is, the thing that, my boss, Nitin Chandal, who heads India for technology, he says this always, like, make sure we are having diverse slate to begin with, right? So obviously nobody goes after quotas, but it's more important to make sure that we are making sure the slate is as diverse as we plan to have in our organization. So in that sense, there are varied techniques, but these are a handful that I can talk about right away.
So basically, I think what I hear is that it starts from the beginning. Your CEO walks the talk. So he
Yes.
has a lot of direct reportees as women, and then all the others also follow suit. Then.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's leadership by talking. And I think Pallavi has come online. Pallavi, I've also spoke about Eightfold AI, and I've spoke about having a diverse slate. Anything else that you would want to add, please?
Sure, Bhargavi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. And sorry about the earlier one. I think it was because of my headset. So thanks for the question, Nagma. And just adding, I could hear Bhargavi. So thanks, Bhargavi, for just your thoughts on this. And I completely agree, having been in the bank now for almost 3 years myself. So I just wanted to add, banks specifically, if you look at the financial services industry, right? Banks are all about numbers. And, almost 2/3 of all banks are today measuring all data related to hiring and diversity, specifically gender diversity to start with. Of course, many have ventured into other kinds of diversity. And, whatever you measure is what actually is what you get, right? So even in our bank, when we look at from every selection, so from the entire life cycle, from the time we are selecting to the time we bring people on board, to the time when we're looking at mentorship and sponsorship opportunities for women, to the time, and we are looking at some of these programs are still evolving as we speak. But even as we look at, say, once somebody has left and wants to join back as a boomerang, or even like a returning women who want to come back and join the workforce, right? So one is just looking at different initiatives, programs that are being run across the entire life cycle of a woman's journey. And the second bit I'd like to add to what Bhargavi was saying is just it's not just about these, these are good to do, etc., but these are things that we actually measure. Our CEO, Todd himself, has taken some very strict targets, and it's all like he's announced those. It's in people's goal sheets. So one of our values, which is strength in diversity, that's part of our entire performance management process as well, because we have to share behaviors related to those values. And then of course we are also trying to, and I guess the HR folks will have a lot more, but we as say people leaders, we get to actually see the percentage of women that have got promoted, at what levels do we have different women, where are maybe the gaps. So it's all about those measurements, having the right conversations, and just seeing that tone from the top, because what is important to our CEO is obviously really important to his DRs, and then of course it goes down the line, right? So I would just add those points to what Bhargavi said.
Great. I think putting a number makes it more real. So now if my CEO is listening, I'm sure our targets are going to be, changed now. And I'm sure it has worked for you guys, and there's no reason why it should not work for others. So my other question is now directed towards Bhargavi, is that apart from providing equal opportunity, what is your view on the parity in the pay? Because we constantly hear about that, the women are being paid lesser in many, in any kind of, at any level. So what is it? Have you been able to bridge that gap? And is this also visible in a tech space? Because both of you work in a tech space. And what have you done about it?
Yeah, very good question. So I think historically, the reason for that is women are not known to be good negotiators when it comes to, what they believe they should be getting and so on and so forth. In terms of what have I seen and what are we doing within the bank? We have independent study that happens, and it happens not just once, once in a few years, again they'll do it. And it is to say, for a particular job category, are we having the women getting paid less or more? And we have done market corrections when the women were getting underpaid compared to what is expected at that level. So this is not like within the bank we're doing that study, we're doing from an external third party source, if you will. In addition to that, I think the game has been changing, and Pallavi might have data to it. I don't have data to it. I think the game has been changing quite a bit in terms of talent market, right? So it's like, you might have heard about these cliche terms like talent war, right? So especially for any company that's going after innovation like us, and I would proudly say so, because we have, I think for the bank that we are, which is Wall Street 1 was our first building. So that's the history we have, 250 plus years. We have innovated over and over again. Just recently, there was this announcement that we are going to be supporting digital assets, right, in our custody business. So in that sense, we're a very highly innovative bank. And for a bank that is as transformative as we tend to be, we go after quality of talent. And if we go after quality of talent, there's no questions that you have to pay that premium. And we are consistently benchmarking ourselves both within and in comparison with market. And we don't just look at ourselves with comparison with other financial sector. We also look at it with the other technology firms that are leading, to see how are we doing as an organization and what can we do for correcting. That's kind of my personal viewpoint.
Pallavi, anything you would like to add to this?
No, I think Bhargavi covered it. I think the important thing is continuously challenging oneself, going out into the market and getting a third party's opinion. I think in some geographies, it is now mandated that women, like, there cannot be any gender bias at all, right? And there are audits that happen around these things. So, which is great. I think that's almost like ensuring or forcing. It's like you must have at least one woman on the board, kind of a thing, right? So, yes, enforcement helps and works, but I think it's also driving the right kind of behaviors towards pay equity.
Okay. So, Pallavi, this question is for you. So, can you tell us about some of the values that are deep-rooted in your leadership team, which has helped you in hiring without bias?
Absolutely. So I alluded to one of them. One of them is strength in diversity, right? So obviously we believe that we all need to internally look like our customers and clients, right? So the team that is building products, if we don't know what our customers are like and we don't have a diverse set of individuals working together in an environment that allows us to have a voice and different voices and experiences, how are we going to build that better product, right? So it makes business sense to be diverse, right? So that's the strength in diversity piece. And I think not that we needed that to be reiterated, but I think now we have, like, we are just sharing all of these values across along with the behaviors. And like I was mentioning earlier, these are now very clearly a part of our performance management process as well. I think more than just the strength in diversity, because a lot of companies do have, a value of saying that, we believe in diversity and so on. I think one of the values that we believe, and we have 4 in the organization, but the one that really, I think, helps us be that little different is a value that we called as courage to lead. And the reason why that resonates with me personally a lot is because courage to lead is a value which is all about asking very hard questions, feeling empowered to speak up, and how do you feel empowered to speak up? You have to build that environment and that culture that allows you, where, that mind is without fear, right? Like Rabindranath's poem says that, right? So how do we have that or imbibe that value of courage to lead, where it can build an open culture in a place where what we call within the bank, where we can have courageous conversations? Because if we don't feel that we can speak up and ask those questions, whether it's about diversity, it could be about anything, right? It's whether it's we want to do the right thing for our customers, we want to ensure that ensure that when women are returning from maternity, that their performance reviews should hold, right? Whatever was somebody's rating, if they were an exceeds performer before they went on maternity, right, they can't become a below expectations performer just because they were not working for 6 months, right, and working in quotes. So allowing us to have that value of courage to lead is something that I feel is what's trying to really set that tone, which is different from where I've been before.
Great. So this question is for you, Bhargavi. So do you think that BNY Mellon has been able to increase the productivity by diversity hiring or having a diverse employee, and if so, how?
It's not unidimensional. So if you think of productivity as a pure play, what's the throughput or what's the yield, that might not have changed substantially. I think where it makes a difference, going back to what Pallavi was saying, was that when you have diversity of thought at the table that is representative of the clients that we serve, then what that helps is in the design process, we have people that can think like what it is going to make as a difference to client. So the iterations, the frequent iterations that we do with the clients, because most of us we follow agile and DevOps practices, so we have rapid iterations where we kind of have client ideate along with us with various tools that we use, like AHA, which is like Jira Align is the product. Basically, the features are ranked by both the engineering team as well as our clients, and we are completely transparent in that process. So because of this team being diverse and embracing the diversity of our client, because we also use Omni as a strategy, which is basically we build solutions which are open, modular, networked, and integrated. So we kind of have our ecosystem in such a manner that it allows for the diverse thinking, not just from internal, but with our client partners and everybody else. And so the end product that we build more often than not meets or beats the client expectations. And that's where I would call it as a productivity gainer, as opposed to saying, hey, we are now delivering 15,000 story points more than what we did. It is not that kind of metric. It's more about how are we building on our client trust, how are we building on client satisfaction by consistently delivering products that meet our client expectations, because we are representative of that client workforce, as well as in our ideating phase itself, we are taking our clients into the game.
Yeah, and not only that, I think it is proven that men and women approach the problem differently. So I think you have more different kinds of solution coming in, and because of that, a better product coming out of it.
Yes.
So
yes,
thank you.
absolutely.
I think that was a very well articulated answer. So another thing that I wanted to ask Pallavi was that, while all the organizations are doing a lot for, diversity and inclusion, what message you have for our audience? What should they do to overcome their own biases? So like yesterday, Suraj, our group CEO, was mentioning that the biggest weapon in the hand of an oppressor is the mind of an oppressed. So till we, what will you give, what will be the message for you, to our audience, that how should we overcome our own personal bias? I am dark, I am short, I am tall, I am not that intelligent, I may not get here. So what do you advise them?
That's a great question, Nagma. And, it brings to my mind a video I had seen of Oprah Winfrey, right? And I hope most people would have heard her or seen her on television. She talks about this concept of tapes in our head, right? And what she means is that we all have a tape running in our head, which can mostly it's because it tells us we are not good enough. And what you alluded to, right? The mind of the oppressed, right? It's all in our head. It's all inside us. And it's telling us, typically that devil that tells us you can't do something, not good enough. I'm not, I can't find the time for this. If I raise my hand for this, like who'll look after my family, right? So before we can even think of the art of the possible, we are already telling ourselves inside that what is going to make it impossible, right? So, and I really like that video I saw many years back, and it kind of made me reflect a lot about always first think about what can be done, right? Rather than what's holding me back. So, and you're right, organizations, and certainly I've seen it in BNY Mellon. In fact, all of the top institutions today, organizations are doing so much for the workforce. Specifically, how do we want to grow, our diverse workforce, not just gender, even other types of diversity. But there's only so much an organization can do. It has to be a two-way street, right? You can take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink. So it's really up to us. So if the organization is providing tools, it's providing policies, it's providing even an ambience or an atmosphere where you can speak up and you have a voice, do you give yourself, do each one of us give ourselves the permission to do so? And that for me is the biggest difference that we ourselves can make. Because you can have everything given to you on a platter, but you have to pick it up. You have to show that enterprise. You have to take that initiative and say, okay, I'm going to make this work because I know I'm worth it and I can do it. Right. And let that other tape, just shut that tape down. Right. So for me, I think that's the most important thing that I would say, that, how is it that we are allowing ourselves to blossom and bloom and do the next best thing? And how do we not just keep holding ourselves back because of some nameless fears which we seem to be having in our heads? And it's mostly in our heads. It's mostly things where we are comparing ourselves to others. We always think somebody else is better than me. I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough. If I had this much more qualification, maybe then I should say yes to the new role. Right. So, I mean, it's really up to us. And that's all I had to say on that, Nagma.
Great, great. So this question is again for both of you, but since Pallavi, you're already talking, you can go first. What are the personal challenges that you have faced to be here today, and how did you overcome? Because if I look at both of you, I feel that you have done it all. So what are the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Gosh, I can't even think of all the different challenges, right? There are so many, right? But then it's again, like, all of us have the same things, right? So specifically when you're a married woman, you are a mom, you are a very driven wife and a driven mother. You want things to be just so right. So that itself, you make your own challenges for yourself, right? So there are so many. And then of course there are hiccups around the way. There are career conversations you've got to have, specifically when both you and your husband have careers that are doing, you're both doing well. Who takes priority? Who will move which town? I mean, I've kind of faced so many of those particular challenges. And of course, I've been blessed also with a very supportive spouse, extremely encouraging parents who just made me believe and say, I think all my confidence is thanks to them. Like, you just have all the wings, you can do what you want to, you can be whatever you want to. So I've grown up in an environment where I've learned that I can do it, right? It is possible to do it. So yes, you always have those challenges, but I've never and Bhargavi says something really nice. I've heard her talk in other forums as well, and she's made this comment that don't treat your career or your job as as an accessory, right? That today it's looking nice on me, so I wear it, and the other day let me give up. Because one of the first things that we women tend to do is, let's quit our jobs, right? I am going to get married, let me quit my job. I'm going to be moving town, let me quit my job. I'm going to be a mom, let me quit my job. Or let me wait for a few years till my child is older, then I'll go back, right? Like, there are so many of those things. But if we say, okay, there is no way that I'm going to, because a man doesn't think like that. They don't think that, we've got married, so let's take, not, I mean, they have no such option. Why is it that we think it's an option? If it was not an option, if the career or what you want to do, if that's what you want to do, of course, right? And again, to each his own. I'm not saying everybody should be working or have a career, but if that's really what you want to be and you aspire to do, then you've got to think, okay, I have this happening in my life. What is it that I need to set or put right or get organized behind, so that I can continue with what I'm doing in my career as well, right? So it's no longer an option that, hey, but I'm going to leave my job. So for example, when my husband was moving towns, right, and when we were moving to Bangalore, I was doing really well in Stanchart. We were based out of Calcutta at that time. My son was small, and he got a really good position at that time with GE. And I was like, in absolutely no way was I going to leave my job, right, and move to Bangalore. So I spoke to the folks at work, and I had to make a big change because I was in the front end at that time when I was in Calcutta, managing all front end clients, customers, high net worth clients. And the only roles that I was getting, because I was keen to stay with the same company, I checked with them, was that you have to go in and do something completely, manage operations, back end, work with vendors and so on. But I was like, hey, that's fine. I'll get to learn another side of the bank and of the industry, right? So I think it was never a question that I'm going to leave, but what is it that I can do so that I can continue to learn and grow as well, right? So it was always about, it'll work out. And one message I want to share with everybody is, like everything in life, everything's temporary. Problems are temporary, and so are good times are temporary as well. So nothing will stay the same, right? And during the times when we feel we can't move ahead or there's such a big thing happening, remember that, it's a cycle. Things will change, right? And typically they change for the better. Because when you look back, even if you've gone through a bad episode, which you think is bad, when you look back, you realize, hey, that was good for me because this is how it helped me grow, right? So I think just how I looked at my challenges, I guess, was this, just that belief in myself. And one more thing that I think that helped me a lot was just the fact that I was okay to take risks with new roles, new managers, new cities that I wanted to work with. I didn't let that bother me too much. Some people feel I can only do well if I'm doing this particular role or this particular, I'm working with
there is a continuity and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think that's so just having that belief that, hey, you can do it, you can work it out in different environments, and also believing in the people that believe in you. Sometimes, you feel, I don't think I can do it, but it's good to believe in others who believe in you. If there are others who are encouraging you, just go ahead, do it, right? You can do it. And I've had several such people in my life who've continued to encourage me and say, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. This is just do it. So I think that's how I have kind of gone through my own career graph.
Great. I'm curious to know what Bhargavi has to say.
Yeah, so thanks, Pallavi. I'll build on some of the things Pallavi said, but I want to give it a different dimension. So I strongly believe safety and growth don't go together. Discomfort and growth go together. And I have watched TED Talk. Forgot the lady. She spoke about luck, and she did experiments. When you think of startups, you think of how many startups succeed, how many startups become unicorn. The failure rate is very high, and so there is a factor that we might think is luck. So she did the analysis of what really constitutes luck, what kind of things have they done or not done. And so based on that, she said it is actually about risk taking. Luck is nothing but a component of risk taking. Because you asked me what got me here, so I want to differentiate between what was my necessity versus what has been my ambition. And so my necessity has led me to have a job in the first place. I did want to be financially independent to support my parents because I'm the elder daughter, and I have one younger daughter who's not working. And the parents lost all their wealth due to several unfortunate events. So for me, if I wanted to support them, I didn't want to rely on my husband. So I ended up having to have my own job. But it was just a financial need, nothing more. Ambition started much later. So I started my career in 94, and my ambition really got triggered 20 years later. So in 2014, I really wanted to be the best I can be. Not that I wasn't doing my job good, but I didn't know how far I could go, how high could I go in a corporate ladder. Those ambitions did not come. So I strongly believe it starts with the vision for yourself. right? So I tried to do a personal vision in somewhere around 2000. It didn't come to me. One of my mentors at that time told me, don't worry. I was asking him, am I totally clueless? How come I don't get any vision? So he said, in the night when you go, you only see so much distance. That doesn't mean with a torch that you won't have further light, further visibility. So he said, when the time is right, you will get that, but you're ambitious, you're doing right, so keep going at it. But I tried again. In 2016, I actually had a vision of what I wanted to be. And I really wanted to be a global CIO. And for a Fortune 100 company. So that's how specific and precise I was. And 2018, I became global CIO for corporate technology in Bank of New York Mellon. And I believe that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that vision. There are two more related aspects. So when you want to think of anybody in the topmost ranks, be it corporate senior roles or entrepreneurial, the thing is you need to be okay to challenge people who are above you, who are your peers, because you have to have that genuine passion to grow your business, to grow your company. Those have to be bigger than your individual ego or your discomfort with talking with a difficult person. All those things come in your mind when you really want to raise the bar, right? When you want to raise the bar for the organization, for your team, for your clients. And that kind of hunger will only come when you're genuinely passionate about the key outcomes that you're going after. And if you're having that, then you'll take those risks, right? And when we talk about risks, and I'm trying to circle back to what I started off with, one risk in one area builds you stronger, and that gives you a multiplying effect, right? So I'm an athlete also, quite by accident. I ran several full marathons. Like most middle-aged women try to prove that they are still young, so it's in the same category. But what is interesting is this arm you're seeing is bandaged because I picked up bicycling about 4 weeks back for the first time in life. Now, if you ask my mother, she'll say, "What's wrong with you? Because you're too old to be doing it." But I learned it and I was quite fine anyway. So recently I skidded myself. But these risks, I never knew that I could learn how to balance myself, how to ride a bicycle. But doing that now puts me in a position to do a triathlon. Yes, it's one more risk, but it's going to give me one more level of confidence, give me new set of friends. Social risk, being able to talk to a stranger, being able to sign up on a platform like this. Emotional risk, being able to share openly about yourself. Think of children in an elevator. They become friends within no time because there is no guarding my inner ego, right? I'm open to saying, hey, I really miss somebody, or I need a hug, or whatever that is. As we keep growing older, we keep having this big wall of armor. We don't want to be sounding vulnerable. And all of those actually reduce your level of impact, reduce your level of trust building in the organization, right? So intellectual risk, I keep reading books all the time. The most recent book I have read is fantastic. It's called Range. If you haven't read it, go for it. It talks about, in the olden days, we used to talk about 10,000 hours of mastery in a particular craft puts you into leadership position. And that's what Tiger Woods has used, his father has used. From the age of 3 years, he was made to learn golf and he became expert in that. But Roger Federer, on the other hand, did not come into tennis until after 15, 16 years. Until that time, he was playing all sports. So what that says is, when you are in a wicked world versus kind world, we really don't have kind world like a golf game. We have more wicked world. And in that, it is important to experience the range. So those of us who were forced to do math, even if we wanted to do art, is good. You're learning the range. So anyway, so the bottom line is intellectual risk, emotional risk, social risk, financial risk, physical risk. Each one of them that you do builds confidence in one more direction. and overall you become this persona that feels like you have the world to conquer and nothing can stop you and nothing will stop you, because you will find curveballs that you can pass, circumvent, and keep going.
Is there a correlation between, I was going through both your profiles, is there a correlation between successful women and fitness? Because I because I think even
I would
is also very big.
No, I would certainly think so. And I'll quote one more article. That's my most favorite article, which is from Harvard Business Review. And you can Google it up. It's manage your energy and not your time. So all of us have same 24 hours in a day. And productivity is how well you manage your energy. And that managing energy comes from being able to manage your body, mind, emotions, and soul. And so it's the entire well-being. It's not unidimensional again, but fitness is a fundamental building block, because this is the being that is getting carried in this body. And if it's too heavy and you can barely walk, I think it's going to be a bit problematic. But I have seen some women who are quite chubby and they're doing fine as CXOs. So I don't think that is probably true of everyone, but I personally have a correlation with my body health being directly linked to my mind health. One last thing I'll add before I give it back to Pallavi is that I used to have this story in my head, because we are the stories in our head. For many years, I used to think of myself, you were talking about oppressed versus oppressor. My story in my head was that I was being used, I was being ill-treated, or I was a victim. Everybody was taking advantage of me. And all I needed was this one solid person that I could throw my whole self onto. And so my story was, I was a creeper. I needed a solid rock, and I was a creeper. If you look at all our mythology, everything, right? So we say Lata is what we correlate a woman to. And all these filmy things also talk about the same character of a woman who is like delicate, vulnerable, and sweet, right? So I changed the story in my head in 2014. Don't ask me how, why, I don't even know. But I changed the story in my head that I'm a banyan tree. So it's only 2014 that I changed. And I said, I'm not a creeper, I'm a banyan tree. And that meant that banyan tree doesn't need a support. I am the support. And I give that support whoever needs, right? So then I'm not being victimized anymore, because I'm serving of my own choice, right? I'm helping others by my own choice. Whether they're deserving or undeserving, those questions don't come, because banyan tree does not discriminate, right? So just that change in my story, none of my external circumstances changed, but how I responded to the world around me changed completely. So again, body, mind, and meditation. Obviously, I know Pallavi does meditation. I do meditation. That's the only known technique to change the response to a particular stimuli. So it creates that pause. So body, mind, emotions, and soul, all four, investing in that gives you that longevity. Sorry, Pallavi, go ahead.
No, I love, so by the way, I love that book. I also recently finished a David Epstein range. And the reason I picked it up, Bhargavi, was because I love the title. It says it's for generalists in a specialist world. And because I'm a complete generalist, jack of all trade, master of none, for me, I was very curious to read a lot more about it. And I loved it, right? Because I think different experiences, and it kind of helped just reiterate the messaging that I have in my mind, that and because I love to do multiple things, I like to be involved in many things at one time. I just don't like to do one thing. That it's so important that you do and try different experiences, even within roles and rotations, or new bosses, new teams, new networks, new stakeholders, clients, right, countries, like all of that. It just builds you into such a different person, because then that whole things that stop you become lesser and lesser, right? So I really like that book as well. And I remember your banyan tree story as well, apart from the don't treat your job as an accessory. And that's such a beautiful thing, Bhargavi. Thanks for sharing that. I think I just add, I think Bhargavi covered it all. I think see, energy for, and specifically for, one is women. I'm certainly of that age where, if we just have to look after our health, and not just at an age where you reach, my age, but even for whenever you are in this journey starts early, right? Any kind of inactivity in my head is equal to lethargy. And when we have lethargy, that lethargy is also leading to slower thoughts and kind of that, lack of energy, right? So for me, I'm just by nature an active person. And while I don't have any marathons to my name, but I have, again, through that range of things, I have tried almost everything, and I enjoy a range of activity, whether it's kickboxing or yoga, or just sitting and listening to a bhajan and focusing on my breath, or just doing om chanting. Like, it could be just about anything. And I just ensure consistency. I just ensure I do something every day. And it could just be that today I would just do various types of stretches. It could be just about anything. Or that today I just have to be in a plank 3-4 times a day. But whatever it is. So for me, it's just that consistency in doing something every day, which I think keeps me fit and keeps my body fit. Because when I am fit, then I think it gives that overall energy. And as a leader, I have to translate that energy to my team. If I come in, and of course, and in a virtual environment, if they can't really see that passion and see the energy even on just the way I'm speaking, it can even be worse, right? At least when you're in the office, they can, there they can see, and you can at least almost like transmit that energy even through physically, right? By giving that in-person smile or whatever. Virtually, it's even been tougher, and I've been even more aware of my energy levels in a virtual environment, because I think you have to try a little harder to just motivate yourself, right? Specifically if you're somebody who loves being around people, or just motivating your teams to keep their energy up, to keep going, because everybody's gone through such tough times. So it's not about being the fittest person on the planet. I think it's just when you take care of yourself, whether it's physical, and even now today, like, if it's going to work, even though I'm going from one room to another, for me, I'm in office. So for me, it's important. So I will, ensure that I am not in pajamas, and that I actually take that extra initiative to look good, to feel good and feel confident, and be able to transmit that professionalism on to my team and people I'm working with. And I guess that has that other effect, right? At least that's the different feedback that I get from folks, right? So for me, it's more about that. Although because I love dancing. So Zumba is a big favorite of mine. And I've been playing a lot of YouTube videos, and just, on my own. And my husband's been like laughing at me because he doesn't like any of that stuff. So he's like, I can just switch on something and just be dancing alone. Doesn't matter to me. But yeah, that's just me.
Great. So I have my colleague Vidya, who is also a big champion of diversity and inclusion, and I'm sure that she will have some questions before we close. Vidya?
Yes, Nagma, thanks for letting me ask a few of my own questions. And actually, I don't have too many, but I was just curious about one thing, and this is for Bhargavi or Pallavi. While we're talking so much about hiring without biases, what I wanted to know is, early in your career, have you faced any kind of a bias in an interview when you were right there, and how did you handle it? I mean, of course, at this age and this, after having these many years of work experience, it's a lot easier to handle this. But, right at the beginning of your career, have you faced anything of that sort where, and how did you handle it?
So I can go first, and then
Yeah.
you can join. So in my early on career, I really didn't face any kind of bias in the interview process. In fact, I was like the cherished child, if you will. When I was first getting interviewed for Texas Instruments, I was picked for enterprise computing group, and that was like elite group, all senior member technical staffs and fellows. They only hired me from campus because I had done a lot of work in distributed systems, and they were mostly coming from legacy platforms. So because of my master's courses and all, I was handpicked, and like I really enjoyed because I was the pet kid for them, and I got enough mentoring and all that. I did, however, face a challenging situation. No, wait, no, it's not a challenging situation. It's actually the contrary. When I was being selected into one of the leadership roles in a previous firm, I don't want to name the firm, and the exec search firm guy who reached out to me said, "Madam, this is a diversity position." Anyways, I went through the interview process. I had about 13 rounds of the interviews, and I got selected. I was very happy with the opportunity itself, and I became very close to my boss. And I was talking to him. I said, I understand that you wanted to increase diversity, but it doesn't make business sense to me that you should wait for 9 months to get me into this role. So the answer he gave me was amazing, and I was blown away with it. He said, Bhargavi, he said, yes, we have women, and in this bank actually there are quite a few women and in senior leadership positions. And I'm not talking about BNY Mellon, sorry, so it's almost giving away my name, but like they were still going after. And so but he said, we're not going after numbers, we're not going after quota, but we try every time to see our slate is diverse. So apparently the first time the exec search firm came, they got 30 all men for that role. It was a senior leadership role, all 30 were men. All my boss said was, no, this is not acceptable to me, I want some women in the pipe, right? And so then they got 5 more women added to that list. Final 3 that were being considered, 2 of them were women, and he said it was totally based on talent. So what does that tell you? Like 2 out of 5 had much higher quality, and 1 out of 30, right? So as a ratio, women that come into senior leadership positions do have to have extensive talent, and there is enough studies that say that we have to fight it more harder, right? But that happened only because my boss asked that pivotal question of, I want a diverse slate. So I think the bias is happening because nobody is asking those kind of questions. If more people ask that questions, like in our government as an example, we say that we need diversity and we put some quotas. But like if we said, okay, let's try for 50% women, we might not get 50% women, and then make it a meritorious process. Like only, we don't have a filtering criteria for the candidates, but if we had that meritorious criteria, I think we would be changing the game for our country, right? So when we can produce so many leaders, I am not going by any political party, but like Indira Gandhi, Mamata Banerjee, or Maya Devi, or whoever, like so many women, Sonia Gandhi, so many people, they were all women. And so then it's a matter of, are we just pushing ourselves to ask the right questions, to raise the bar, right? So I guess I didn't really answer like the answer you were looking for, because I really didn't experience a negative bias towards myself. But I had experienced a positive bias, which I thought was silly initially, but I realized that was the right thing to do from a industry perspective.
Right. So in fact, the reason why I asked you this question is our audience we have today are, millennials, youngsters, and a lot of women. So what we really wanted to see is, how do you handle such a situation? So I think the good thing is, you haven't come across, such a situation.
Yeah, it wasn't an interview kind of scenario, but there was one particular manager that I was dealing with at one point. I think where not being a woman myself would have helped. So the kind of bias I had experienced was that um, again, it wasn't a game outside, it was my internal head game, right? So he was very, what do you call, I am lacking politically correct words here. He was totally an asshole, right? Sorry, please don't record that part. But the whole point is, he was trying to make my life miserable for questions that I might have answered a year back or some other time back when we were both peers, and then he became my boss, right? And at that time, whatever I had done to challenge him, he was taking it out against me when I started reporting to him due to an org change, right? And so instead of me kind of saying, okay, this person has this persona, and so how do I make it easy for him, I started taking it personally that, he's just doing this to me. And this was before my banyan story. And I was like, I used to prepare myself, and there was an exec coach who offered this advice: before you go into that meeting, make yourself big, think of something that gives you power. So I used to think of how my grandfather hugged me, or an event where I came 13th in the country, or something else. Got all bullied up, went into that room again, came back feeling miserable about myself, crying, feeling unhappy. uh, but the whole point though is, I could have changed, and I have changed after that experience. Okay, anyways, in that company I left the job because I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I moved on to another job. But in another job, I had another woman who was really suffocating me. But in this scenario, what I had done was, I had gone underneath the layers to really understand what was the cause of her discomfort. And this might sound like not right to you guys, but nobody comes, wakes up trying to mess up with your lives. They are surviving, they are using their devices to protect themselves, in that process causing you some harm. So you need to understand what's causing that panic in them, and how do you put your proposal or your approach in a way that it can become a win-win for both of you. And I was able to change that story with this lady. It could have really, and in fact she openly admitted that she was afraid of me, and that she felt insecure with me because she found me very strong technically. And then I actually embraced her, and kind of made a win-win presentation where both of us co-presented. I highlighted what her strengths were and how can she make a difference to my product, variety of things, because she came from customer service side. But that combination worked out really well. So if you can peel underneath the layers, there is a human, whoever that jerk is, there is a human underneath who is just fighting or flighting his own responses. So you need to understand that underlying concern and see if you can help that person in that process. If nothing, you will feel good about your own ability to cope with the process. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if it makes sense.
Right. I think that's a really good tip, Pallavi, and it does not really matter. If, I think whether you're a youngster or even really experienced. I think this really applies, into life. I mean, in personal life as well. Try to understand what the other person, or where the other person really comes from. Thank you for sharing this tip, Bhargavi. And what about you, Pallavi? Would you like to share any experience of yours?
I think again, I haven't really faced any bias, to be honest, at least during a hiring process. I have certainly faced bias when I rejoined work after my son was born, where one of my bosses so many years back actually turned to me and said, while we'll give you the best rating because I'd been doing well, he says we are going to be holding back your bonus because since you weren't there, the rest of the team picked up all of the slack, and they are the ones who deserve the bonus. So we will not give you any bonus this year. And innocent me at that time was like, oh yeah, absolutely agree. I wasn't there, and that was me many years back. So more than 22 years back, right? Fast forward, right? I should have absolutely gone maybe 2 levels above. If it had been me at this point, so many years back, I certainly would have. But at that time, I was like, absolutely. And I think a lot of when you're more, just, younger in tenure and not senior enough, or you feel you don't have a voice, or, your boss or manager is like, yeah, you kind of hang on every word of theirs, right? So that was me so many years back. And that was one bias that I have faced, certainly, after coming back from maternity. However, I think over the period of years, I have seen bias. And I have tried, and many times I'm always like, I've been in many places, just the only woman around the table in a room full of men. But I've been able to influence and bring them back with a jerk to, wake them up. A couple of times this has happened, right? So one was a very simple thing. One of the colleagues was getting married, and there was obviously money to be collected across and a gift to be bought. All men. I was the only woman in that team meeting where we are deciding this. Everybody said, oh, great idea. And my boss turns to me and says, why don't you collect the gift and buy a gift why don't you collect the money from everybody and buy the gift? And I remember, of course, I was like, this is fast forward quite a few years. If it had been my old me, I would have absolutely taken that out immediately. So I just looked at him and I said, sure, I'll let your EA know that she can collect it for all of us, and then I can provide some ideas. And he immediately understood. See, that was an unconscious bias, that just because I'm the woman in the room, let me just have Pallavi collect the money and think of what's the right gift to give to somebody's wedding, right? Anybody could have thought of it. And eventually it was one of my male colleagues who actually said that, hey, I'm going to be thinking of what gift to give and so on. But my boss immediately realized that was a funny one. That was like complete unconscious bias. But I usually, I don't know what happened, because I just looked at him and I was like, hey, we can tell your EA to do this. And he got the message. The other one was when I was sitting in this meeting and we were deciding on who will get an assignment to move to the US at that point. And then in that particular session, the names that people gave were all men. And I was like, what about this person, that person, and all? And I had all the women's name because I knew the top performers. And for each of the women, my colleagues had a reason why that name should not be on that list, right? New mother, somebody got just married, doesn't have enough experience. And I was like, while I understood not having enough experience could be one of them, but the remaining two, I was like, have we asked them? Have we asked them if it works for them? So what if somebody's a new mother? They'll figure it out. But if they are the right person for the role, have we asked them, or are we making assumptions? And of those two women, so we let go of all the men, and of the two women, it was one of those women who actually got to go for that assignment. She figured it out, and then her husband said, I'll look after the baby, and then I think they joined her later. But that was an aha moment for me, that as a leader, I have a voice and I absolutely can bring everybody. And all of them were well intentioned. There was no one who was like, no, so and so should not get it or whatever. It was all with good intentions. But these are the types of unconscious biases which float around. And I think as women, we have to be aware and observe and be there and say, hey, you have a seat and a voice at the table. And I think I did my job that day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I guess it's not really a war of men versus women, etc., etc. But I guess women can truly support other women, and that's something I've really seen at my current workplace, or everywhere else. When women support each other, I mean, there is a saying, right? When women support each other, wonderful things happen. So I really truly believe in that. And thank you for sharing your personal experiences, Pallavi and Bhargavi. I'd like to hand it back to Nagma. Thank you, Nagma.
So thanks, Vidya. I think we have run out of time. I just wanted to thank Bhargavi and Pallavi. Both really enjoyed chatting with both of you, and it didn't look like we're chatting for an hour. Time just flew by. Thank you so much for taking time out, and you guys have a good evening.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Bye.
Bye.
So thanks to everyone for staying on. Next up, we have a talk by Prerna Mukherjee on making it count. Now, Prerna is the founder of Outline India, a for-profit social enterprise that works to create social impact through data. She has over a decade of experience in designing and managing large-scale research studies across India. Prerna has also worked closely with government officials and international donors in the capacity of an economist, research lead, M&E, and data specialist. In addition, Prerna is a Chevening Fellow at Oxford and holds an MA in Economics from Boston University. And also, we'd like to add that Prerna was featured on Fortune magazine's 40 Under 40 for 2 consecutive years. And that's a lot. And Prerna, we'd like to welcome you to for our today's event. And I hand it over to you, Prerna. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. Very happy to be here. And I think I had a chance to listen to, a part of the conversation that was ongoing between two lovely ladies and Nagma, and, about workplace and what does gender mean. For me, it's been quite an exhilarating journey in the last 8.5 years. And what we do is very localized. What we do is very niche. It's about trying to create impact via data. And when I say data, I'm talking about not big data. I'm talking about data at the grassroots. I'm talking about the superset of India. I'm talking about the India that lives in its tier 4, tier 5 towns, villages, which pretty much comprise about 75% of the country, right? And I think numbers we often tend to forget. Those of us on Twitters and Clubhouses and Instagrams they don't represent the superset of the country. They represent a very, very, very small subsection of what India is all about. And so my company has been about that superset over the last decade. My company has been about trying to make sure that their voices, their opinions, their needs reach those capable of, interested in, and worthy of making decisions at a very big level, right? So my company, Outline India, basically collects data off the ground. We help our partners understand whether their policies are working or not, whether their programs are working or not. For a company such as mine, this pandemic, has been, I don't even have the right words to say here, but little short of groundbreaking. We've seen so many partners come out, come talk to us and tell us about all social programs that stand disrupted. We've had impact funds talking to us. We've had so many CSR teams come to us. And, these are all partners who are trying to figure out where to send concentrators, what's working, what's not. If they sent out 1,000 meals, did they reach the right people? Now they need to send another 1,000 meals somewhere. We are, in a sense, those data partners who help them figure out where to send what to, what's working, what's not working, et cetera, right? And how I came up with the name. A lot of times people ask me, Prerna, how did you come up with the name Outline India? And, I was a young researcher, about 26 years old. And I thought, if I'm to go around the country, covering big parts of the country, I'm pretty much outlining India. And that's how the name happened. How do you want to do this? Do you want to do a question answer, or do you want me to just go extempore? Okay, I can't hear anybody, so I will just continue. All right. I think, I often get asked about, what is it that we do? And the simple way for me to sort of explain this is everybody needs data. So when you pick up a magazine and you see some numbers thrown in, those numbers didn't randomly just show up there. There's a lot of effort. There's a lot of pain that goes behind every single digit in that magazine, in that report, in that secondary data set that, you and I take for granted, right? It's somebody going out into the heat, walking kilometers, trying to find that right household. It's somebody crunching numbers for months at an end, trying to ensure that the projections that they're coming up with are, as close to reality as possible. When we're talking about numbers, we're talking about policymakers who are talking to school teachers, to headmasters, to students, to girls and to boys, and trying to figure out what's going well, what's not, right? If you leave, say, 50 kilometers, if you go 50 kilometers off Delhi or off Bombay or off Bangalore, you will realize that realities change quite a bit. And by that, I mean, you walk into a public school and you'll see on one side you have girls sitting and on the other side you have boys sitting, right? They don't pay the same school fee as maybe everybody in the audience today is okay paying or can afford to pay. It's a very different subset, but again, it's a superset. And if we here sitting in Delhi, sitting in any other part of the world, are to pump in money to figure out how to improve learning outcomes, how to improve healthcare, how to set up new hospitals, how to send out more meals, how to ensure that medicines reach people on time, how to ensure that the vaccines get to people on time, how to ensure that people even understand that they need vaccines, they need a company such as ours, right? We in essence work with think tanks, the government of India. We started working in certain other parts of the world. We've done work in about 15,000 villages. We've been around for about 8.5 years, and it's been nothing short of exhilarating. Often I get asked about why I chose this field. Like I said, I'd finished my master's. I was in the States, and I had development economics, which basically means you're studying policy and data and ground level. And being a Delhi girl, I feel like I didn't have much exposure. I didn't really know what the rest of India looks like. And then when I came back, I took up this job at a think tank, World Bank, all these big organizations, and I realized that the quality of data in India is circumspect, to say the least, not very representative, and at times just disparate, which means, you'll have a small subsection here, kuch yahan hoga, kuch wahan hoga, right? And all of this just doesn't add up to, give you a good story. Now think about whether you're the UN or, whether you're a state level government, and if you have to decide why aren't people getting vaccinated, or if you have to figure out why are so many people out on the streets, even though there's, this fear of COVID. You need data to figure all of this out, right? You need to collect data. And much like I said a little bit earlier, that, a big chunk of us are still not online, guys. As per official figures, we are somewhere around 55-65% of us online. But if you break it down and you do away with intermittent access, and then you do away with access which limits itself to maybe a Facebook and a WhatsApp, the percentage of population in India that uses the internet is still very small. It's still very minuscule. Another statistic that I came across a couple of weeks ago, right, that how will vaccinations reach women when about 70+% of women in India do not own phones? Just think about the disparity that's on the table, right? How will women figure out whether these are girls, whether these are adolescents, whether these are unmarried women, whether these are widows, whether these are women who are not part of families, conservative families, or who don't have all the access to the information? There's bound to be a lot of confusion around this, right? And so when we look at data, when we look at numbers, guys, our hope, our mission, our goal really is to ensure that these data sets are representative. We try to ensure that we're really reaching the target audience and the stakeholders who we set out to achieve, when we set up about 8 and 9 years ago. And a big part of my idea was that, you'll hear of all the big CEOs from India running these big data firms, running these big analytics firms. But my question to all of them is, how is what you're building reliable if the data set that you're using to make those decisions is questionable, right? And so I decided to pick up step 0 of the entire research process, step 0 of the entire policy making process. And that's pretty much how Outline India happened, right? I set up as a for-profit company, and a lot of times people ask me, Prerna, if you're there to create impact, if you're talking about social impact, then how can you be for-profit? And my response to that has been, if you need incentives, if you need good people, you need money. If you want to forge ahead and you don't want your mission to get diluted by this donor or that partner, you need to be for profit. If you want to use technology, if you want to grow at a fast pace, you need to have incentives in place. Otherwise, why will somebody X who has other limitations, responsibilities, family issues, why will they come and work with me? And it is for this very reason that I have continued to be for profit. And I really think that That's the right way ahead, even in the impact space. Again, this is not to say that not-for-profits are not needed, but they come with a very different mission in mind. They come from a very different vantage point. The mission that my company and I are here with is to enable them to do a good job, is to enable CSR sustainability teams to really achieve more good using that same amount of money, is for them to be able to improve fund utilization, is to be able to enable them to do better work, reach more people, improve the lives of more people, take care of their own employees, so on and so forth. And at the heart of all of this, guys, is data collection, and using impact metrics to do all of this. The second question that I think I've been asked to maybe speak about is, the pitfalls of running your own ship, the pitfalls of running an impact firm. And, there's this quote that I'd probably seen Shah Rukh Khan or somebody say, right, that always act like, the burden that you bear isn't too much to bear, and always do whatever it is that you're doing with a smile. And I think I really believe in that one, right? Nothing that's really worth having comes easy. I don't come from a business background. My father worked in a bank all his life. And, I'm a first generation entrepreneur. I don't even call myself an entrepreneur, but for the purposes of this conversation, let's call Prerna a social entrepreneur. I think as long as you have this idea and a good reason backing that idea, it cannot simply be something you roll out of. You really have to have a good reason for going ahead with setting up of a company. It's not easy. It takes so long for things to get up and started. I think a lot of young people, a lot of young professionals, a lot of young students these days are misled by all that they read online, all that they see on social media, all the funding raised. I think for every 20 startups that raise money, there's 1,000 that don't. For every 100 that reach Series B, they never reach 80, never reach a Series C, which means they do die down even after a Series B, right? So these are stories of triumph, but these are also stories of loss. It's just that, owing to media and owing to the quantum information that we have access to, we just tend to focus all our energy on on those stories, or on those startups, or on those entrepreneurs that have forged ahead, and not so much on those that didn't go as far. This is not to say that you shouldn't go out there and give what you truly believe in a really good shot, a really good try. But my advice, or my 2 cents on always this is that it's a very lonely road, right? You will have salaries to pay, you will have rent to pay at the office, you will have to take care of your people, right? In the last 2 years, a pandemic broke out, and we didn't know how we would survive. We didn't know how, given a field and a survey and a data collection and impact organization, when we couldn't go out there and meet people, we didn't know how we'd make it. But it took us a couple of months. It took a lot of adaptation. It took some adoption. It took some business loss. It took losing some people for us to arrive at an optimal solution where, which has led us to this point where now things are looking up, things are looking better. We're hiring again, we're growing again. We did something, started doing some work outside of India. But my point is, it's a learning process. It's a tedious process. It's a time-taking process. So you better really believe in whatever it is you're doing before you start doing it. Know that the good days might be short-lived, or the social media mentions or the newspaper articles will indeed give you pleasure, and they'll be like a validation of what you do. But you better have a very, very good reason to be able to doing what you do. I remember that when I started out for initial 2.5 years, I didn't have enough money. I try and figure, aaj kaun si gari le jani hai, right? Which is more efficient in terms of fuel. I remember when I first bought my first printer, I was so cost conscious, right? And, even to this day, I mean, I've got to be smart about business. I've got salaries to pay. I've got to figure out what strategy to take and what strategy not to take, right? There's a finite amount of resources, there's an infinite option, and there's very limited time and even more limited brain space. So when you set up on your own, please know that you will, of your own volition, or you'll be forced into making decisions you may or may not want to take. And a lot of those decisions will keep you up at night. You'll question yourself, you'll doubt yourself. And the one thing for sure that will help you get through that entire period of uncertainty is really knowing or backing your own idea. I think at heart, you've really got to believe what you're working on. And in my case, I think the fact that Outline was really working at the grassroots, that we were bringing these data sets to those who really were capable of making decisions, help me carry through and help me forge ahead in spite of the good times and the bad, in spite of the pitfalls or the lonely days or the weeks or the months. But just knowing that our work was making a contribution, has been super inspirational. I think the other question that I get asked about once in a while is, Prerna, how are you set up as a leader, or what is the leadership strategy that you follow? And my answer to that is, there's no book that can tell you what's going to go well, what's not going to go well. Of course, learning from examples or learning from real life experiences of others, those perhaps are those invaluable nuggets that you really need to cherish and to record and to take notes on. But there is no fixed script, there is no fixed protocol, there is no one book that will teach you everything you need to know about being a good leader. And right now, I think leader is too fancy a word, right? I like to call, how do you really work with people, or how do you really understand what that other human being needs from you? I think the other thing I've realized is that in our work at Outline India, at one instant, we might be working with the government, at another instant with an impact fund, at another instance, a CSR head, or somebody at the UN or World Bank. And on a very different day, we're working with field workers, with, stakeholders, adolescent girls who are mothers, or, some vulnerable populations. So there's this entire spectrum that our work covers, which makes it so fulfilling, which makes it so much more enjoyable. And then just the sheer scale of the work that we do, right? I mean, having been to some 15,000 villages as a team over the last 8.5 years, never thought it was possible when we set up in 2012. And, team structures have changed, the people have changed. I've learned so much. I've learned to be a little bit more patient. I've learned to trust my team some more. I've also realized that there's not everything that I can do, and I really need to train my team. I need to trust them, and I need to give them the ownership of whatever it is that they are doing, and then back off a little bit. I think that's the sign of maybe a good leader, that you hire the right people for the right reasons, and once they are hired, you give them that space to really experiment, to succeed, to fail, to figure things out, that you don't step in, that you don't bypass their decision making. That you're really out there trying to do the best job that you're capable of doing. I've tried my hands at technology. I've tried my hands at this social assessment tool that's called T.R.I.U.M.P.H, wherein we're trying to automate social assessments. And, some of it has worked, some of it has not worked. And it's been a constant learning process for me, even after so many years. I think the other thing that, I get asked about all the time is, Prerna, how did it feel when you made it to a Forbes list, or when you made it to a Fortune 40 under 40 list? I think the universe really validates your efforts. I think if you put a lot of effort and hard work and good intentions, and if you're really driven, I think, and you put a lot of good energy out there, and you believe in yourself, I really feel that the universe listens. And all these accolades and endorsements, I think they've helped on the tough days, on the really tough days when maybe I was questioning myself a little bit more than other days. And I think that's how far some of these accolades go. They validate your efforts, and they help you get through the tough days. But on all other days, trust me, you're not thinking about what award you won or what website listed you or which magazine put your picture out there, right? At least that's not how I think it works for me or a lot of other entrepreneurs I know. I think I'm going to just now try and close this conversation with maybe my 2 cents on for you, for any other aspiring entrepreneurs out there, or whatever little advice that I can give researchers. I think if you're a young professional, if you're a young student, experiment. Go work with a startup, go work with a research institution. Sometimes they might be unpaid. If you really like the idea of a certain firm, write to the founder, write to their firm, and if you write to 20 of these people, I guarantee that at least one of them will reply, or at least one of them will really appreciate your interest in their work. And I had this very dear friend, acquaintance actually, who was a poker player and 102 or something world over, and he told me, Prerna, and I'm like, how do you play poker, and how are you not nervous, and how do you rely on, and he was a full-time, he was a professional poker, he'd worked with a poker company earlier, but then he went he became a professional player. And I asked him, how do you deal with the stress? And he's like, Prerna, my stress is no less than yours. And 3 words that he said to me that I still remember, he said, Prerna, volume cures variance. What that really means is that whatever it is you want to do, you plug in often enough, you do it long enough, you work on it hard enough, obviously intelligently, that the winning numbers will come through, or the variance will go down, right? And I think just in general, be approachable, be willing to change. And I think also know that some of your ideas might get molded in due course. Know that you yourself as a person will go through a process of evolution. I think the universe has a plan for you. It has a plan for me. But it loves a hustle. It loves the effort that you put in. And I think that the universe can read minds. So put all the hard work and good energy out there. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Prerna, and that was a lot of energy, I must say. And before we say bye, I have a question that I'd like to ask you, Prerna. When I'm an avid reader, and whenever I read, I love to read fiction, especially action thrillers. And when I go to sleep, all of those things keep playing in my mind. So I was just wondering, as you were talking, when you go to sleep at night, do all of these numbers and the data and all of those things play in your mind? What plays in your mind when you just go to sleep?
I think a lot of things play on my mind. I'm wondering, how to deal with HR the next day. I have 5 team meetings. I'm wondering if my field team's on the ground, if they are doing okay. We have women and men out there. I'm hoping everybody's okay, because we go into these, nooks and crannies across the country. So I'm obviously concerned about their safety and their well-being, and ensure everybody comes out doing well. And, we have the data and the quality of data that we're looking for. But, like I said, it's a really good feeling at the end of the day to know that you made a small contribution towards better policy making, right? I mean, we worked on health insurance schemes, we worked on Beti Bachao, we worked on Swachh Bharat, and in some way, shape or form, I know that the kind of work my company and I and my team have done so diligently and with so much love and with so much effort, it's creating a more equitable, a better society, better policies, better distribution, right? So that's a wonderful feeling.
Right. Thank you. So, Prerna, we do have a lot of, campus hiring programs that run within Quest Corp, within Monster. And we do hope to, invite you, and we do hope to talk to you in future. We would like you to speak to our youngsters, and let's hope we can make that happen. And thank you so much for having joined us today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me with you. We always have a lot of interns, so I'd encourage people at your end to apply. Happy to consider any further applications. Thank you so much for having me. Good luck, everybody. Ciao. Bye.
Bye. Right. So the next part of the event is going to be a video that we're going to play. And before we play the video, I'd quickly like to introduce our platinum partner, T.R.I.U.M.P.H. Now, T.R.I.U.M.P. is the world's largest publicly traded property and casualty insurance company, And teamwork and inclusion are central to the way Chubb works, because because Chubb believes that the best solutions often draw on diverse ideas and perspectives. And diversity at Chubb is about achieving a mix of people within various teams, and on how they think and how they are as people, and the approaches they take. Chubb is also about creating an environment where differences are leveraged for a better business result. And what we'll do right now is very quickly take a look at Chubb.
We are Chubb. We are the world's largest publicly traded P&C insurance company. Our roots go back to 1792. We employ 31,000 employees in 600 offices in 54 countries and territories. Our insurance helps everyone from people to businesses worldwide. Chubb helps manage risk. Claims are paid fairly and promptly, and the promises we make are backed by exceptional financial strength. We seek to make a positive difference in the world. That means protecting the present and building a better future. We do this by continuously improving, striving for excellence, and executing. Our leaders see enormous talent and opportunity in India. We have facilities in Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Bhubaneswar, filled with talented people helping define the future of insurance. At Chubb, we want to craft the next chapter in our proud history, together with you.
Right. That was a little about Chubb, and we're going to have a look at a very quick one other video of Chubb. Now, this video that we're going to play is a conversation between Mr. Juan Luis Ortega, President of Chubb Overseas General Insurance, and Ms. Ivy Kusinga, Chubb Chief Culture Officer. And let's have a look at what they think about diversity and inclusion.
We're very pleased to have Juan Luis Ortega, who is Executive Vice President for Chubb Group, but he is also the President of our international operations.
I started with ACE back in Ecuador, a tiny country in Latin America, where we've been very successful over the years. Then that journey inside of ACE at the time took me to 6 countries, 8 different houses, which my wife reminds me of very frequently. And those 6 countries were, of course, Ecuador, the US, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Chile, and Singapore. I spent 6 years out of those, probably 21 years in Chile, 6 years in Singapore, and now 5 years back in the US. So I've had the pleasure to work with wonderful people all around the world, and being I guess a first-hand have had first-hand experience at the diversity that we experience around the world, different points of view, different cultures. So I'm just delighted to be here and talk a little bit more about all of that. Having been through 6 countries around the world, I've had the luxury of being positively shocked by cultural moments that I can point to in my mind, right? From having great conversations with just fantastic colleagues from Korea who are very tough-minded and would really challenge any rationale that I was bringing onto the table with a passion and a strength that was really impressive, to the to other episodes where I could see the, what I call the quiet, soulful awareness of my Thai colleagues and friends, right? Who gave me different perspective when I was being too aggressive on an issue. Without slowing the decision making down, they gave me another perspective which was far less aggressive, and got to the same outcome or a better outcome even. And then I must say, that this has nothing to do with my travel, but just I've also can point to moments in time where I was impressed and by the enhancement on the decision making that women brought to the table when we had a diverse group looking at something, and it was a totally different perspective that enriched the decision making, enriched the outcome, and I think we need more of that. We need more of more diversity, whether it's racial, gender, geographic, you name it. It just makes the outcome better, and it fits very well into the Chubb culture because we're driving towards an outcome always and building something, and you want to have that diversity in that process.
One of the things that I will kind of layer into your response is, I think one of the things that COVID has done, which is really a very sad byproduct, it's really given us a sense of humanity about each other as colleagues, because I think the corporate environment, in the manic pace of business, I think you tend to forget that people are people and that people have families and concerns and have had impact. And I think what has impressed me so much about Chubb is this sense of humanity, people looking out for each other, people really reaching out to each other, and really kind of giving a sense of camaraderie and support, regardless of the location, regardless of level. So I just think that I wanted to highlight that also as part of the commentary on the upside of Chubb's culture.
Ivy, just to interject a little bit on that, because you're absolutely right. And you reminded me by saying that of the first 2 months of COVID, right? And the calls we were having with Evan, with our teams, and we've never asked and devoted so much time to asking, how are you doing? How's your family doing? And it was on every call, we took the time to ask. And of course it was contextual, but it drew us to, closer together, I thought, as teammates. Yeah.
Yes, and I hope we don't lose this, Juan Luis. I hope it can become interjected into the normalized way in which we interact. But let's move on to another question, because you alluded to this, is from your perspective, what is the value of culture and diversity to our business? Because we trade very globally. You talked about our customer base internationally, but you also talked about our employee base internationally. Where do you see the core value to our business and to our people?
It goes back to basically better decision making, right? You make better decisions when you have different perspectives. It's as simple as that, right? And it makes you look around and again see those perspectives, and it enhances the decision making. And when you're making better decisions, you're better in the marketplace. You have an edge in the marketplace, because it's all about, we're making decisions, whether it's that product or this product, that channel or that channel, that technology or this technology, this route towards efficiency or that route towards efficiency, or how do we interact with each other in an office, and so or how do we come back to an office environment, right? On all those decisions day to day, that diversity really helps and makes us make better decisions, right? It forces better decision making, which is fantastic, right? So I think that's where it is, right? And it gives us an edge in the business, in the marketplace.
One of the things I really have that has kept me with this business, I think, is the level of complexity of insurance, because we sell products to so many companies. But one of the things I really enjoy, to your point around perspective, is, the learning environment that it creates for us. And there's nothing I gain more than leaving a meeting where somebody has said something in a way that I just had never thought about before. And so I love this idea of, the diversity of perspectives making us sharper. And I think from my standpoint, one of the things that I value about our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is really the authenticity, that the value from being authentic. When you're really authentic at work, I think it unleashes performance, because you don't have to care about all the other variables, the way you speak, the way you come across. You're really more concerned about the purity of your work, the purity of your contribution, drawing in from others while you're giving. And so this commitment to really making an environment so people can really just be who they are not only makes it attractive, I think, for all the people in the building. Frankly, it's more attractive to people who we want to attract into our organization. But ultimately, the win game is for our customers, because they get the best solutions, that we can arrive to the best solutions.
Yeah, and you know what? There's another area where I think it transcends just an immediate business benefit, which is great. We get it. You know, it's fantastic. That alone pays for itself. But there's something that transcends. You know, we're going to spend, whatever, 20, 25, 35, 40 years working, right? At the end of the day, right? You make your own choices, but it's in that range. And if we can, leave the industry or the workplace with a sense of, I not only help Chubb build that product or that territory or that process, or, because it's a company that exposes us to always be building and progressing and driving us to something bigger and better. If on top of all of that, we can leave this place or whatever workplace with a sense of, I try to hire in a different way, I try to promote for diversity. If we could leave the workplace with a sense of having built a better world, in a sense, right? That's better than what we faced when we began, or women of our age faced when they began, and it'll be better for our daughters, our sons. That's an intangible, that little pieces of what we do make a change, right?
I love that.
Ultimately for the world.
I love that. Sign me up for that proposition. I really sincerely love that.
Thank you all for staying on and being with us through the event. And we conclude the day, but before we go, I'd like to remind you that we have 3 very interesting sessions tomorrow. And a lot of the sessions tomorrow are on, culture, D&I, and inclusion at the workplace, specifically to do with the LGBTQ community. So we would like all of you to join in and have a look, have a listen to all the conversation between experts from these fields. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And it's going to be the same time. And we hope to